Панелі. А я хочу зараз анонсувати наш наступний блок. Я дуже рада представити наших спікерів. Андрій Чахоян. Андрій – засновник та CEO Strategic Narrative Consulting, академічний директор програми глобалізації та корпоративної дипломатії в Амстердамському університеті. Віталій Гончарук. Віталій CEO та фаундер в Augmented Pixels, голова експертного комітету з розвитку сфери штучного інтелекту в Україні, Міністерстві цифрової трансформації. Наступний панеліст Роман Зінченко, співзасновник Грінкубатор, співорганізатор конференції TEDx Київ, та Дмитро Аранчій, засновник Дмитро Аранчій Architects, піонер обчислювальної архітектури та експерт у сфері архітектурного проєктування. Тема дискусійної панелі – як технології змінять наші міста. Hello, Andrew. I would like to give the floor to you.
I did watch a few panels today. Amazing event. Thank you for inviting. I guess I'll start in English and then we can switch to Ukrainian, Russian, whatever the preference.
We will check if all our speakers are present. I see Roman.
Here.
Hello. Vitaly. Yes.
Great. Let's move on.
Please unmute you. Super.
We're running a bit behind schedule, so I think we'll keep the session short just to make sure we cover the basics. So welcome to the most exciting panel of the day. Technology is changing the cities, we all know that, and now we'll hopefully learn exactly how. I think what I wanted to do is split our conversation into two blocks. One focusing on connectivity and the other one is focusing on climate and green cities. And I think Lisa already introduced our panel. We could not have asked for a better group, right? We have an architect, we have folks that deal with technology, AI, and we have the green energy. So in the second, we'll hear from everybody. And maybe before we play a video that focuses on connectivity, I wanted to just ask each panelist for one sentence definition of a smart city. What is a smart city to you? I'll go, who I see on the screen. I'll go with Roman. Thanks. Good to see you.
Thank you, Andrew. From my perspective, smart city is the city with the primary decisions made based on the data-driven approaches, and the city which is run by data, not by texts. So actually, the last part is the quote from one of my teacher. So here in Ukraine, in the government, we have more text than data. So I believe that smart city is powered by data and only then by texts.
Awesome, great. Then let's go to Dmitro. Dmitro, how would you define smart city?
Hi, everyone. I think that the smart city is the city which enables, which thinks, which co-creates, which adapts, and which thinks and also make decisions with people and with everyone.
Great, that's a very inclusive definition. Excellent, thanks. Over to Vitaly. Welcome.
Hi guys. It's hard to define in one sentence, but I think smart city for me is a kind of lifetime efficient area where I'm supposed to live and where I like to live.
That's interesting. So a place where you'd like to live. Okay, that's great. Let's play that video that we've agreed. I think it sums up a lot of what's going on in the world.
Throughout the annals of science fiction, future cities are typically dystopias. Think of the bleak lives of city dwellers in Blade Runner, Metropolis, or The Caves of Steel. Recent projections show that by 2050, 2/3 of the global population will live in cities. which makes it imperative that our future cities aren't vast urban hellscapes, but are instead smart urban centers with a dash of sci-fi, devices, roads, and lampposts all talking to each other, making life in cities safer and smoother. And this transformation is already beginning. A smart city is a place where items around town are connected. Streets, buildings, personal devices, cars, power grids, all sending data back and forth, passively working together to improve the community. Imagine public buses that trigger sensors in the roads, providing a real-time ETA. Streetlights that dim or brighten depending on foot traffic. Stoplights warning of an accident ahead. At the core, a smart city needs two things: sensors to collect data, and the connectivity to send and receive it. Some cities were early on the connectivity part, like Barcelona, which has had fiber optic cables embedded below its streets for more than 30 years. Other regions, like in the US, have been slower on network infrastructure, but they're catching up. Meanwhile, sensors have become smaller, cheaper, and more powerful, giving rise to the Internet of Things. It's no wonder that the number of connected devices jumped to 8.4 billion in 2017, an increase of 1/3 in a single year. With these two major technological pieces in place, spots around the globe are launching large-scale smart city projects. In Barcelona, sensor-embedded parking spots connect with an app that directs drivers to available spaces. Street lamps brighten automatically, and they're part of Barcelona's Wi-Fi network, providing free internet access across the city. Similar smart city projects are underway in cities like Stockholm, Amsterdam, Copenhagen, and Columbus, Ohio. Some focusing on energy usage, others on safety or public transportation, but all hoping to make life in cities that much better. The hardware and connectivity are here, but truly smart cities need systems talking to each other. And that's not always the case with so many disparate projects. Firms like Ford and Qualcomm are working on languages to connect these systems. Meanwhile, industry experts are already pointing to ethical concerns. A smart city necessarily requires tons of data to be collected and stored, which comes at a high cost, both financially and for citizens' privacy.
Great. I think this frames our discussion quite well.
Hey,
And,
NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube
I
channel.
think this is
Subscribe by
the-
clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.
Now we got the NBC promo. But I think the video ended on an important note. You know, that there is a trade-off, right, between the costs, privacy, this connectivity. You know, it's the languages. Can the system be compatible? Maybe what I wanted to ask the panelists is, what do you think if we had to name just one technology that's the most impactful? Like, what's coming? What should we be expecting? Because you're working in those fields. What do you think is going to change, say, Ukrainian cities in the next 1, 2, 5, 10 years? Let's go in the same order. I'll go to Roman. What's 1, 2 technology that you think would make the most difference?
Well, I would be careful predicting the technologies that would be taking over some type of cities, because it largely depends on the country we are in. So you're in the Netherlands. I see it from your window. Yep. So I expect that probably the Dutch innovation landscape will be reshaping cities faster than some other components. But well, you know, from the city's perspective, I see that cities have this dichotomy. Cities are really great at creating and attracting opportunity, but also one of the important jobs of the cities is creative destruction. And first, I expect many cities destroy some jobs. We won't be missing them very much because we are not missing those guys who were lighting the gas-fired lanterns, or who were manning the horse-driven carriages and doing some other things. So cities are actually the hotbed for many innovations, and the intersection of technologies would be fast. So from my perspective, the first technology the cities would be taking away, so guys from Glovo, Raketa, and Uber Eats, be prepared to that. I think this type of jobs have maximum 10 years left in them, and they will be largely replaced by the autonomous drone technologies and other similar things. On the other hand, well, cities are always the place of deficit. Yeah, so cities have a lot of opportunity, but cities do need electrons, cities do need molecules, cities do need calories. Cities mostly depend on the food, energy, and other things imported from the outside. So I see two major shifts in the cities coming. They're primarily in the fields of energy, mobility, and food chains, food networks. So I don't expect cities to become self-reliant. That's not a part of their nature. They are larger than major trading hubs, but they will be reshaping according to the new models. So we have this 3D of the energy revolution described by the Bloomberg New Energy Finance, decarbonization, decentralization, and digitalization. And that would be the future for new energy grids of the cities. And cities would possibly be not just the buyers, but the new type of players in the globe, in the national markets, primarily in the national energy markets with the national grids. But cities, we can perceive cities as a type of, huge accumulators also, and huge system that can sometimes help balance the grid. Surely they also can create a lot of imbalances, but the deeper penetration of new energy technology like smart grids, microgrids, distributed generation, maybe new types of energy storage, hydrogen for industrial applications and other things, that would be significantly reshaping the picture of the cities, how we see it. And secondly, this is about food. Yeah, food is essential for the cities. Food actually shaped our cities because every city has the market square. And why the city has a market square? Because the safest storage for example, for pork 500 years ago was just bringing living animals to the market square, yep, and sold them there. So, and that's why every city has this market square. Well, we don't shop for food anymore like that in most cases. So the food systems would be reshaped. I have actually no idea how, because on one hand, I'm really excited by the indoor gardening, by vertical farming, by in-office farms and other things. But I'm really excited to learn more about the future city food systems. And the third thing for me, the third approach would be transforming some of the cities, not all of them, some of them, is actually seeing cities as the flows of materials and applying circular economy approaches. And so when we will be able to do that, that would be exciting, very interesting new future for the cities. What lies ahead? Well, I would be careful to predict, but like in any type of innovation, we have the beautiful curve of innovation of how the innovations are promoted. So there will be cities who are early adopters, and there will be cities who are late majorities, and there will be cities who are laggards. So Everett Rogers' model for innovations diffusions work for cities too. So those who are redefining them earlier probably would be having some edge, and since the cities would be playing larger role in the global economy, that would be also putting them higher on the global economy stage. But I think innovations would be picked. Yeah, thank you.
Super. No, thank you so much. This is more comprehensive than I expected, but I love the framework. I think the topics you've highlighted, the areas where things will shift are important. Over to Dmitro. The same question. You know, if you had to name one technology or one big trend that's the biggest shift for the cities, what would you talk about?
Okay, I'm not sure about next 10 or 20 years, but I think that first of all, Ukrainian cities should get rid of some things that are not connected with smartness. For instance, get rid of cars on the sidewalks and so on. It's more on the
basics, yeah,
on the legislation part. Of course, in this field, smart technologies could be helpful as well. For instance, if we are trying to introduce some new bicycle routes or pedestrian routes or whatever, we could, instead of having a guy on the road who counts number of cars or number of bicycles or number of people, we can have a smart tracking system, which not only tracks and counts data, but also predicts maybe more sophisticated routes. For instance, if the cyclist wants to get from one point to another, and the route is very tricky, it could predict that it should be more straight, and maybe there is a way to construct this straight way. This is just an example of infrastructural integration. But in a broader point of view, I think that the future cities, Ukrainian cities as well, could be adaptive. Since I'm an architect, I think more about spaces and voids and spaces, so they can be adaptive. They can it could introduce adaptive architecture and adaptive spaces. For instance, real-time based scenarios, the structures that could be integrated into the square, and then when, for instance, fair appears on that square, it could construct some little buildings and adapt to the number of people and so on. Also, we are talking about mobility. When mobility, modularity, and self-structuring in the field of architecture, in the field of infrastructure, doesn't matter. So when one changeable module could be a part of one building and then another, or the cluster or the giga cluster, and it's very easy to relocate, to reconfigure the whole system. The same relates to the roads and other infrastructural parts. So I think this is my vision of the smart city of the future.
That's amazing. I want my city to adapt to me. That would be super cool, if and when that happens. Vitaly, you are dealing with AI, and I presume this is a big question for the future of cities. You know, once we have better AI, maybe the autonomous driving becomes easier, or on the other hand, total surveillance that we see in China becoming an issue, question of privacy. What's your sense of the most interesting new technological trends that will reshape the cities?
Yeah, I'm dealing with AI. Actually, I base it now in Palo Alto, and like yesterday I saw several like self-driving robots for food delivery.
Nice.
So yeah, so it's like for Ukraine maybe it's something too far away, but for these cities it's a reality. So if to pick up one trend, I will choose logistics, like city logistics, and using like with help of artificial intelligence, with help of mobility, I think this like the city logistic will be significantly improved in next 10-20 years. And what I'm personally expecting from this trend is what city will be more kind of adapted for my needs, like for my specific needs. And city will be less time consuming and again, more personalized for each citizen of these cities. This is my personal expectation. For sure, like technologies like surveillance and self-driving cars kind of looks now a little bit scary for casual people, but I believe what our legal kind of regulation and etc. Will adapt to this and secure some risks. So I believe everything will be fine.
That's interesting. So you're not afraid of surveillance. That's good news, and it's good to see that the robots are already coming. It's not just.
I'm not afraid of surveillance because there are other technologies which help you to control surveillance, or there are kind of deepfake technologies which help you to protect you against surveillance. So in general, it will be in any case some balance. So it will be not like Orwell cities where we live under control. In any case, it will be achieved some balance between technologies.
No, it's. I think again, if we refer to that video, it does start by highlighting the dystopian visions. Hopefully.
Yeah, it looks like for dystopian, but I think it's because most of our people like not familiar with these technologies, so it's normal reaction to like afraid. But like first reaction to afraid. But if you go deeply, you will see inside of artificial intelligence what some companies developing surveillance technologies and some companies developing like anti-surveillance technologies.
As it goes with all tech, right? There's on both ends. Before we jump to the second half, where I wanted to cover the decarbonization of cities, but for now, I wanted to bring us to the context of Ukraine. I'll share an example of what I found to be a very impressive smart city experience. When I was walking down Pushkinska Street, and the green light or red light, depending on traffic, the floor would go green or red, and it keeps you from crossing. If say the floor below you is turning red, you don't want to step on the street and get hit by a car. And I've not seen this in Europe. Maybe you guys could share an example of something you've seen in Kiev or anywhere in Ukraine that you think is a cool innovation and something that other cities could replicate. Or if you cannot think of example in Ukraine, just any cool thing that already exists that's interesting. Roman, what have you seen anything that you'd love to share?
Well, I will share the project that spun off from Greencubator. My brother is managing a really interesting, exciting co-op, which is called Solar Town in the city of Slavutich, nuclear city built to replace Pripyat. So this is the crowd investing project where over 90 people committed their funds for building the municipal energy co-op, which is earning from the feed-in tariff and funding some of the local projects. So that's not the yet self-consumption projects, but I also see the growing trend for self-consumption in mostly in business in Ukraine, not in the cities yet. But this is one of the rather practical and rather interesting component in close vicinity.
Excellent. So you think this is something other cities could pick up? Does it sound like it's
definitely that would be an interesting model both for people building new points of trust, because co-investing, and everybody in this panel definitely knows that co-investing is actually building trust and measuring trust. Yep. So this is building the points of trust, this is building the points of interaction, and I believe that horizontal networks, including in the energy, in investing, and other things, they will be making cities more connected and more integrated. So yes, I think that, for example, projects like we see from Lawrence and Cini in New York at Brooklyn microgrids, when neighborhoods are trading energy using blockchain technology for confirming the trades, for confirming the transactions. This is another next big thing. This hasn't arrived yet to Ukraine, but I'm excited to see how it's redefining, how this technology is shaping, redefining, and moving on. So someday you'll definitely come to us. As for other components, well, I'm more than interested to learn more about new mobility approaches when the public transportation is changing the routes from like fixed routes to more passenger defined routes. So we have different, for example, train cars going different directions to adjust a different group of passengers. So that would significantly increase the number, significantly increase the energy efficiency and environmental friendliness of the public transportation, which is already the most environmentally friendly transport. And of course, micromobility. Wow, I'm really excited. Who are the champions in defining new micromobility infrastructure? Because that's taking over the world. And bicycles are cool, but we have a lot of changes happening in electric bicycles, in like this smaller electric powered devices. So that's really redefining a lot of transit in the cities.
Yeah, and then those have come to Kiev as well. There's some bike shares and there's some scooters.
We have, so for the moment, we have 3 scooter sharing services.
Yeah, no, great. So there is that. Now, Dmitro, what's an example of something you've seen in Ukraine that makes you optimistic about the future?
Well, actually, I can't remember any specific examples in terms of smart city or the city of future infrastructure that we could share to other countries right now. Maybe I'll remember it in a few minutes. And,
and we'll get to green stuff, and then I think that's also architecture thinks about those questions as well.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm not sure as well that the light integrated into the sidewalk is an innovation. So it's a tricky question because maybe some people think that the light on the eye level is just enough to know.
Oh, for sure. It's cute more than useful, right?
yeah, that's right. But I think that the interesting part about Kyiv and the whole Ukraine is that we have like not very comfortable situation for the development in terms of legislation, in terms of government and so on. But anyway, the technological achievements, they just appear somehow, and in many cases they move their headquarters to the US or somewhere. And sometimes we export our technology because it's much more money abroad than inside of our country. And that's very cool. I think that we should export our technologies, get some money and invest it in infrastructure development and in further technological advanced achievement. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Super. Vitaly, you mentioned the self-driving delivery robots in Palo Alto. Have you seen anything interesting that in Ukraine that you could point to? Or if not, then anything else from Palo Alto that we should look forward to?
Not sure about Ukrainian cities. So I think the most impressive what I want to pick up is electronic scooters, which I saw in Beijing 2 years ago. So like gas engines was forbidden in Beijing for scooters, and I think it's something really cool because if Ukrainian cities forbid to use like gas engines and scooters, it will be more ecological, like much better for ecology. It's first. And second, I think for sure is the most impressive in the field of artificial intelligence is systems of surveillance, which I saw back 2 years ago in Beijing and two other cities. And I was allowed to come to the office of the largest kind of surveillance company in Beijing. But for sure, such system should be adopted to like human rights, etc., before integration in Ukraine. So I think this, but from another hand, this system could help a lot dealing with COVID and some other threats inside of the country.
No, great. I like the electric scooter idea. I've seen a few in Amsterdam that are to rent. Amsterdam is a really bike-friendly city because it's flat and the weather is very convenient for a year-round biking. It's never too hot in the summer, never too cold in the winter. But if you think of Kiev with the hills and really different weather patterns, then maybe electric scooters could make a big difference. And it solves the helmet problem that people brought up in the previous discussion. Here, if you rent this flex scooter, the helmet is already stored in the vehicle, and then you put it on and off you go. But great, can we now shift to that couple-minute video on Singapore? And then,
sorry, Andrew, if I may, couple more things.
Sure, yeah, let's do that and then we'll go to the video. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that the whole thing, Ukrainian legislation is just helpful for us. For instance, we don't have many restrictions in terms of drones. We don't have many restrictions in terms of, let's say, non-solid basement buildings, which helps us to provide more experiments within a field of modular architecture, removable mobile architecture. So our lacks of our legislation could be helpful for further achievement, and we should for sure take this advantage to develop.
That's interesting. Yeah, sometimes a very advanced legislation closes some doors, but that's good. Good. I wanted to just be cognizant of time. We might probably run over for 5 minutes, but I don't want us to derail the schedule. So if we could play the video on the Green City, if that's okay. I don't think we got sound. Everything went so well with the first video. I figured the second would be just a breeze, but let's see if we can. Yeah, that looks like it's going to work. I think let's leave it here. I think we get the point. Maybe we'll move on to our discussion. But this is Singapore. I've never been, but when I watched this video, I thought, if that's the future, then it's not too bad, because the urban jungle, cement, and kind of anonymity, and this unnatural world that we've developed for ourselves, right? If you think of human evolution, 99% of human existence, we've not experienced the cities, right? We've experienced savanna, nature, and so on. And there's some studies out there that tell you it impacts our psychological well-being and so on. But now there's also a climate dimension. So if we could talk about this futurism in terms of integrating nature, decarbonization, how will that look? And maybe I'll go to Metro, since you're an architect, and I presume those things that Singapore is doing are resonating with you. What's your reaction?
Okay, with pleasure. So last year, I was lucky to be a moderator of smart cities discussion, smart cities panel on Kyiv Smart City Forum. And I think I was the only one guy as a moderator who was interested in the technologies themselves itself. So all the other speakers made emphasis on the one same thing, that the smart city doesn't mean a technology. It means a smart approach to the city. So I think today, since nobody speaks about that, I'll take this side. And really, what is the smartness of the city? It should provide us the quality of life. It should be healthy, so it should provide greenery and so on. So it's cool that now we can combine all these approaches into one blended strategy, when we can have greenery, and we can have like higher degree of greenery due to our technological achievements. Like all those sensors, they could show what we should add to the soil for plants to grow better. We could predict on the computer when we design buildings or when we design spaces, we now can use computer-aided design to simulate the quality of space in terms of solar radiation, the wind flows, etc., etc., etc. So we either could have the let's say the best scenario, average scenario that is static, or we can add one additional layer that is adaptivity. So we already have the best average scenario of the space or of the void, and we add this layer of adaptivity when it adapts to the for instance rain, snow, wind, and so on, and makes it the best for the precise for the particular event or particular part of the day or of the year, and so on. So I think that the real smart city is a combination of technology and real values. And I don't see anything bad in technologies, and I don't believe in the rise of machines as well. I think we could live in a better world.
Great. No, thank you for that. Thanks for those ideas. Roman, you are in the green incubator, so this is your topic. But could you give me a sense of where Ukrainian cities are moving in that direction of kind of blending nature cityscape, decarbonization, and again, we're running almost out of time. So if you could keep it short, just give me a few things that would.
The leaders I see are actually the cities who invested seriously, primarily in the field of energy efficiency and creating so-called sustainable energy plans for their cities. So decarbonization is yet to become a mainstream for Ukrainian cities, but they are forced into another big topic, which is climate adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
So we cannot talk climate change without thinking of climate adaptation and how the cities would be adapting to the rising sea levels or harsher temperatures, harsher weather, and other things. So a number of cities has committed to become carbon neutral by 2050 in Ukraine, but this trend has yet to show the feasible plans, how the strategy would be implemented. Still, from my perspective, I see lack of more practical, actionable steps like reducing the carbon footprint of transportation, reducing carbon footprint of building stock, and other things. So at Greencubator, we are to some part responsible for creating a number of initiatives and a number of projects that are helping cities decarbonize. But this is the components that are mostly managing municipal energy systems, as well as some of the companies we've funded, we've provided grants for, are helping huge Ukrainian companies to reduce their energy consumption and increase their energy efficiency. But you know, the main task for Ukrainian policymakers and Ukrainian city officials is that climate change and decarbonization, climate adaptations are yet to become the mainstream concepts, So because most of Ukrainian cities do not see climate change as a major issue for them, though it's impacting. Yeah, so I'm currently in the city at the Azov Sea, and this region would be, the agrarian part of this region is increasingly suffering from the hotter temperatures, and we see actually the transformation of agri-production, the transformation of the crop selection, of the harvesting times, and other things which are dependent on the climate aspects, but we are yet to develop the national climate adaptation program, because that's becoming a huge issue in the coming 10 years, I believe.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, it's a much wider concern than just greening spaces in the city. But thanks for that. And Vitaly, you talked about China, and I remember the news coverage of the air pollution crisis in Beijing, where some pundits would even say that the biggest threat to the entire power of Communist Party, power of the presidency, was that climate-related or pollution-related concerns. So I wonder, existential challenge in this whole question of greening the cities, dealing with pollution, dealing with, and it's also, I think, Roman said that there's a continuum where some countries that are threatened by climate change, they have to act ahead of others. There's some countries that are richer, where the society demands those changes. There are countries where it's not a climate, but it's air pollution. Ukraine is somewhere in that continuum, and the conversations have not cut on to, say, the level of discussion in the Netherlands, for instance. But Vitaly, you're in California. There were wildfires, and there are all this climate concerns there. What's your sense of technology, city, and climate nexus?
Unfortunately, Vitaly is not online now, but we can keep our discussion with the other speakers.
Okay, let's. Do we have, Alisa? Do we have another couple of minutes? How much time are you giving us?
We have 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, then let's make it a closing remarks, maybe a couple of minutes from each on any topic related to technology and cities that we haven't covered. So, Dmitro, over to you.
Okay, actually, I think that in terms of architecture and in terms of infrastructure, the cities of future. No, okay. I think that the previous question wasn't covered enough. So when we were talking about the values and technologies, I think that such approaches like vertical greenery and green roofs are very crucial for cities. For instance, the city of Amsterdam invested like tons of, I think billions of euro to implement green roof strategy all over the city to prevent water damage, because 30% of water is being evaporating, 40% is being consumed by the plants on the green roof, and only 1/3 is getting to the canalization system, which is 3 times less, and the load is enough to cover average flow. So I think that we could really combine smart technologies in terms of growing plants, in terms of controlling the flows of water, of fertilization, and so on, to improve all these approaches, including minimizing and like canceling the CO2 footprint. Of course, we should. I think in Ukraine it's a bit tricky in terms of who takes advantages out of green energy, but in general terms, it's a positive changes, and I think that it's not a long time to use green energy. Now it's like I don't remember, but it's few percent. Of course, our strategy was to get higher numbers, but it's not an issue. I think it will be fast development initiative. So I don't know. Maybe you ask about some specific conclusions.
No, I love your example. I think you just answered your own question. Was the smart city being not just about technology, but finding solutions that are synergetic, and the green roof, it moderates temperatures, so reduces the need for air conditioning, deals with the beauty of the city, the climate, the pollution part, water control. It's interesting, and this is relatively new, right? 20, 30 years ago, greening roofs was not a city priority. Yet now, the more we're learning, the more we're understanding, the more those new ideas get implemented. I think this is actually encapsulates a lot of what this discussion is about. Technology isn't just the sensors, right? It's new ways of approaching our lives and
True, that's true, Andrew. And one more crucial thing to add is the waste problem. Like in many countries, we have about 70% of waste produced by building industry, architectural/building industry. 70%. So, for instance, I remember this number because I used it on my TEDx Lviv speech. So in Ukraine, each year we produce more than 400 million tons of building waste, just building waste. It's enough to cover to cover Kiev with a layer by thickness of 1 meter high.
Wow.
So I think our technological improvements should cover this issue to create and to build sustainably. For instance, we should use either reusable modules, blocks, and finally they should be completely reusable or recyclable in terms of matter, in terms of material. Like we can do it with steel. We could do it with like, for instance, wood, from ashes to ashes, or this nice strategy is called as from cradle to cradle. So we should be really aware of this problem, not only in Ukraine but in the whole world. And in terms of materials, we should be just far more specific and far more far smarter. Yeah.
Super. Thanks so much for that, Roman. Over to you. Let's do just 1 minute closing, and then we turn it back to Alisa.
Well, I won't be, emitting just pure optimism in this situation, because what cities do, cities come and go. I'm currently in the port city of Ukraine, and the future of this port city is very unsure, but that's more or less stable for the coming decades. But I've been to the former port cities that lost all their glory and became just antique ruins. So the city resiliency is a big task. And while you can do it like with software tech only, well, my favorite VC, Mark Andreessen, is saying software is eating the world, but cities are hardware. And it's important, and hardware, especially city level hardware, has huge inertia to changing it. But we need to be constantly rebuilding our cities to adapt to new challenges, not just market squares being no longer adequate food distribution networks, but also, well, Schiphol having the landing strip 6 meters below the sea level, and that's just the major Dutch airport, right? Yeah. So the challenges cities are facing, they are important, they are hardware, but here we should play smart by combining software and hardware and scenario planning, because currently we have amazing software technologies allowing us to create digital twins, allowing us to help building information modeling, city information modeling, and doing scenario planning to different challenges. So cities that will have the future and will not become the antique will be very aggressively defining the scenarios of their survival as well as scenarios of their demise. And this is this scenario where the cities will have a new city hardware, and the soul of the city, the people of the city, will be preserved. So for that, the management of the cities should become new and data-driven and modeled for all the different types of challenges. And luckily, we have a lot of amazing technologies available now.
Excellent. I love this. It's how do we preserve and then elevate resilience? And as you mentioned, it's getting dark here, but Amsterdam, there's so many old buildings, but it's a very modern, progressive city, and the streets are narrow, yet everything fits. And so it's great, great note to end on. Alisa, over to you. Thank you to the panelists.
Thank you all. Thank you very much for such impressive panel discussion. It was really very interesting. I really appreciate you joining us, our SYNCHRO Space 2020. Thank you very much. See you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great rest of the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you.